Good afternoon. It is an honor to be able to introduce Carol Evans to you today. Carol Evans' middle name is Legacy Parks. When I was thinking about things to share with you about Carol, the word visionary came like through multiple times. What I have seen with Carol is she'll see something that nobody else typically would look at twice. And she creates an opportunity for outdoor space. And it's truly tremendous. The other thing I decided was Carol is a weaver of people who create the fabric of collaboration. That's a pretty big deal, especially when you're trying to get people to volunteer, to clean up places, to donate land, to do all the things. If you're thinking about active Knoxville, it's Carol's responsible in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the bike trails or going canoeing or out on the waters. Is really pretty impressive. Her leadership through Legacy Foundation has brought in over $11 million and 600 acres or more of parkland. Her idea about conservation and recreational opportunities for all has allowed us to now become the recipient soon of an intergenerational playground. Now that takes vision, that takes thought, that's inclusive. So without further ado, Carol Evans.
Can't wait to meet this person. Thank you. You're very kind. I always think that I'm very lucky to have this job, and we had a paddle this morning, for example, and I thought, I think it's to do this for a living. I'm like, I do, I guess. So thank you all. Great opportunity, and so many friends here. And I would say when people, I know I can't make up things, so you can hold me to it. But really, Legacy Parks Foundation was really formed in like 2005, and I was fortunate to come on board about 2007. And as Kim mentioned, we've raised over the past 10 years about $11 million for parks and trails and green space, and primarily in Knox County. We work regionally, but we're hyper focused on Knox County because that's where the immediate opportunities were. And we have added about 700 acres, so we upped a little bit more in Knox County. And when we were formed in many ways very much like your businesses are, which is around need and opportunity. And what we have seen over the years as we evolved is this real interesting intersection of our work around recreation, economic development, health, conservation, and tourism. And so we see those intersections. And when we formed 2007, we kind of got traction. 2000, the economy tanked. And so we had to figure out how were we going to be relevant? Why did we matter? Why would you want to give money or land to an organization like ours when there was immediate food, clothing, and shelter needs by other nonprofits? And so we were fortunate. There's a lot of research around that, and a lot of research in this area. But what we found, if you begin with health and begin to look at health, we are not a healthy state, nor are we a healthy community. We're doing a little bit better, and 35% of adults, 38% of children obese. We rate 43rd in physical activity. We rank about 47th in overall health. And I would say, I know who's behind us: Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. Yeah. That's my guess. Even though I'm from Georgia, full disclosure, I am. And when you look at our youth, they get just about 25% of our kids actually get the physical activity that's required or needed for them. So when you think about the opportunity for recreation and parks and open space to meet that need, it's pretty evident. When you start to think about the opportunity for health impacts financially by being, so if you think about every dollar invested in a trail yields about $3 in reduced medical cost savings. And that's a study that was done for Maryville when they were looking at the Maryville to Townsend Greenway. So those are local figures when you look at that direct impact on health savings by being a little bit more, investing a little bit more. This one always gets me. If children are 5 times more likely to be healthy weight and healthy if they're just a half a mile from a playground. So when you talk about direct impact and access and what the opportunities are to affect our health directly with outdoor recreation and play space. And a 5% increase in activity is about a $13 million yield of lower medical costs and increased productivity directly by being active. And we know we have a workforce issue, and we know we have a need for more people to be able to work, but we need people to be able to work healthy and to be on the job longer. And so again, looking at a need and opportunity, there's a direct correlation between our health and our productivity and the ability to be accessing outdoor activities and playgrounds. If you look at tourism over the intersection of our work, tourism is our second largest industry in the state. About 27 billion, I just updated that, it's up from 24 billion last year. So tourism is on the increase for our state. If you look at outdoor recreation, and I always say, if you want to talk about industrial development, think of outdoor industry as an industry. And we want to recruit it and keep it here. The outdoor industry was one of the very few that increased 5% during the last recession. You can't export the outdoor industry. We can't send our rivers and our lakes and our hills and our mountains and our trails to another country. They're here, we own them. And then for those of you who think about founding, in your business, looking at your competitive advantage, think of what East Tennessee has as natural assets. You can't make a mountain in Kansas. It doesn't. We have those. So when you want to think about an industry, the outdoor industry, it wasn't, until about 4 years ago, it wasn't included in the GDP. When it was added, it falls just behind automotive. So it's an incredibly productive, powerful industry that we can own here in our area. When you think about industrial development, and it is. When you think about economic development and the impact, we're fortunate that there's now probably 20 years of study on the economic impact of outdoor space, parks, trails, greenways, and what that brings to the community. And we can know that. You can't walk downtown or be in Knoxville now without recognizing how much we've seen an influx about lifestyle and quality of life. And outdoors is an essential aspect of outdoor quality of life. But when you begin to look at the studies that have been done, the Realtors Association, greenways and trails are the second most requested amenity when people are looking for a home. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Homeowners are willing to pay more to near a trail or a greenway. Walkability is the top priority, all independent and separate studies. This one, the note at the top was what we began to experience in this work here. Lex has been in business about 15 years, and we saw a shift. I was raised to go to college, go find a job, and move to where that job was. That's not how it works these days. These youngsters here could tell us, you get your degree, you decide where you want to live, and then you find that job where you want to live. So quality of life and lifestyle are incredibly important to business recruitment and to recruiting employees. And a company needs to be located in a place where their employees want to live. They want to choose where they live first, and then they'll figure out where they work. And that's even more so in R&D. So we anecdotally had a guy come into town looking to locate a tech firm here. First thing they did was come to rent bikes from the outfitter that's in our building, spent 3 days mountain biking. And they wanted a lifestyle community because they're going to have young employees that needed to move to a strange place in another part of the country, and they needed to want to live here. And so we're seeing that day in and day out. And corporate CEO says quality of life is the third most important factor as a company choosing where to relocate. Locally, we know that TVs for every $1 million, the shoreline has $1 million economic impact. So imagine what we live in the heart of here, the TVA system of lakes and rivers. And we have those incredible natural assets. Oak Ridge, for example, has 35 miles of shoreline within their city limits. I think Knoxville has about 15 within its city limits. So think about, again, the natural assets that we have as a community and what the impact that can have on economic opportunity and the ability for people to want to live here and work here. The urban wilderness, and I'll mention that a little later as we get in, it's less than a half a mile from where we are now. Currently, it's estimated to have about $26 million annually economic impact on our community. if it becomes a natural asset, which we're seeing more people coming here nationally, $51 million estimated economic impact. So outdoors has tremendous, and other than for our health and our pleasure, really speaks to sort of underscoring the fabric of a lot of our economy and our community. So what we do at Legacy Parks, we acquire and accept land. We love to accept land more than we like to acquire, but we'll have to raise money on occasion to do that. And that allows us to do some of the projects I'm going to mention in a minute. Today, we've had about a little over 500 acres given to us. And we also protect land. What we do also is we create parks and trails. So we look at those opportunities, as Kim has mentioned. We work very closely with the city and the county and the state parks. And we like to say that we're entrepreneurial and opportunistic. We're a little more flexible and free. We don't have a little bit of the constraints of the city and the county in terms of governmental requirements. And so we can work very nimbly, and we can work very quickly. And so we can facilitate a donation of land. The first donation of land we did was from developer Scott Davis. He'd been trying for 3 years to give a piece of property to the county. But as many of you know, county government's a bit clunky, and that's not what they're able to do. So we facilitate that donations of land. And then we look at what the opportunity that the land lends itself to. Where the park needs, where the amenities, what does the community want? What can we innovate that we hope is replicable? And I'll mention a couple of those in a minute, those kind of projects. So those are just some of the projects that we've been able to do over the past few years. And we try to work geographically throughout the community. We also hold easements. So what you see in the urban wilderness, the urban wilderness is a very unique project, but what we do is we hold the majority of the trail easements over there. We also hold trail easements with the Department of Energy out of Oak Ridge. So we actually assume the liability and allow for trails to happen. We also do conservation easements. But a lot of what we're able to facilitate is those connections of greenways and trails by us working with private landowners to get easements on their property. We also advocate for the natural resources. A lot of what we talked about at the first part of that presentation, which is really we want to make it easy to get out and play. So we have this very robust website. We took over the Outdoor Knoxville, what's called the Outdoor Knoxville Adventure Center. Those of you who've been here a while remember the Gateway Regional Visitor Center, which was an idea way ahead of its time, but a building built down there in Volunteer Landing. But what we want to be able to do is if you wake up on a Saturday morning and you want to get out and play, how do you do that? And if you've never done that, it can be intimidating. So we try to make it as easy as possible. We have a very robust website. We have a facility where you can come rent boats and bikes. We subcontract down to an outfitter downstairs. Because at heart, we're a conservation organization, and we think if you get out and play on the land or get out and play on the river, you're going to appreciate it, you're going to want to protect it, and you're going to want more of it. So recreation is our backdoor way into land conservation and conservation of all of our natural resources. But what we do, as I mentioned, the Knoxville Urban Wilderness is probably what we're known most for. It was about a 10-year project, and it really began with the acquisition of one particular piece of property. So I would say if you're at the sewer plant and you look across the river on Nayland Drive, that rocky face that you see, that was 70 acres of unprotected land on that bluff. Part of it was already a city park, part of it was already the condos, but for us, it was looking really different. We looked at it, we were ready to buy it, thinking we should buy it. We'd never purchased, we'd never raised a dime as an organization, and it was on the market for $1.5 million. But why did it matter? And if you looked at the map and rolled the map out, which I did literally, because I was less familiar with South Knoxville. South Knoxville is incredibly green. There was 10 city parks. There were 3 Civil War forts. There was a Civil War battle site. There was 500 acres, Forks of the River Wildlife Management Area. There was 300-acre IAMS Nature Center. All of that was there. None of that was created. None of that was invented. All of that was, but it needed to be accessed and connected, and people needed to know how to use that. And this one particular property became the impetus for saying, hey, we have a whole 1,000 acres of urban wilderness in the heart of our city. And it also got us to think differently. And those of you who've been here for a long time, remember South Knoxville, you never call it Knoxville. It was always South Knoxville. And it is always South Knoxville, right? And we treated that differently. But if you went to any other city that had a river in the heart of its city, both shorelines are downtown. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, they own the river. And I also always say, if you ever were asked to describe Knoxville in 2 words, would you say River City? Most of us don't. We might say football town, but we really rarely say. So we began to not call South Knoxville, we called that the South Shore. We said the urban wilderness is in downtown Knoxville. And we began to try to define it differently, to think, what city would not, say that one more time, what city would not envy 1,000 acres and 10 parks all within their downtown, which it basically is. And so we've seen, as you've seen over the last 10 years, what it's become and what it has and the traction it has. And we think it gave us a little bit of a swagger now that we think, we now see ourselves as an outdoor town a lot more than we ever did. And it continues to get better and better, and we continue to have visitors coming in. But at heart, it's a local asset. So all of us can, as we say, get out and play. You can be in the woods for 8 hours on Market Square in 15 minutes. And that's what is being said about Knoxville. You can do both. You can be in a downtown and still get out and play. And as mentioned, the opportunity it creates. Some of the other projects that we're really actively working on, and you may have heard of this sort of next year, Veterans Memorial Park. Great example of property given to us on the French Broad River overlooking the Veterans Cemetery off John Sevier Highway. And it was 12 acres, and we looked at what could this serve, and what we discovered was that there are so many funerals happening at the Veterans Cemetery. There's no opportunity for families to have any commemoration or any activities or any celebrations over the cemetery. We are burying so many of our veterans. It is active all day. So how can we create a place for celebration and commemoration for all of us, but primarily designed for veterans to be able to use? So it'll be open in we've raised $1.5 million for that. And that will open next year, but it'll have a pavilion and an overlook, a beautiful view, but also offer that opportunity for groups and organizations to use. How we work, we create parks, but we don't manage them. So it will become a Knox County park. So we're very closely with Knox County in the process of that. As Kim mentioned, intergenerational play space, we had the opportunity for a Trinity Health Foundation grant. And we thought, let's innovate this and incubate this idea and see if it can be replicated. And we're working, it's a property adjacent to Hillcrest, but also in a county park, to deliberately create an intergenerational play space where kids and adults play together. And there's study after study of the benefit of generations benefiting from each other. So while we have most parks here are multi-generational, where here's a 6-year-old space, here's a 12-year-old space, here's the adult fitness, this deliberately puts kids and grown-ups together. For example, there's a swing where an adult sits on this side and the child sits on, and you swing together facing each other. So it'd be very purposefully built. And the idea is, if we do this, can it be replicated in other areas throughout the community? But it will open in next year as well. I'm sorry, it'll open this year and by October, because that's when the grant is due. So I do. And Gore Frog Farm, again, another, and Kim's been out working on it actually, last 2 weeks ago. Property given to us in Powell. Powell's an incredibly family-focused community. We've received this 14 acres of property. And again, what does the community need? And there was a family folklore, which was too long to, about this being where Angora frogs lived. And the grandfather embellished this and put up signs that this was the Angora. There is no such thing as an Angora frog, just to point that out. It doesn't exist. So we're making a very child-focused park, primarily where they'll read a story panel, they'll interact with the nature, they'll play on a play feature, and they'll get a half-mile walk in without noticing it. We do like to trick people into exercising and taking a walk and not realizing they did that. But again, land donated to us that will then go to Knox County. If anybody's seen a Morningside Park recently, finally breaking ground on a $6 million grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield to make a healthy place play space in that park. So we received that grant on behalf of the city. It'll be a transformation of that park. And interesting how often hearing about your community from others, the Blue Cross Blue Shield, they came up here many times without letting us know it. And one of the women said, I went to UT, and if I had known that park was there, I would have been there all the time. Spectacular, underutilized park down below the Alex Haley statue. But it's gonna have this spectacular, and what Blue Cross does, which is also very nice, they set aside a maintenance endowment. So not only do they pay to construct that park, but it will be assured that it's maintained. So you'll see that coming to life. I think it's a 2024 project as well. So no, our trail is, we're looking at a rail width trail from the Kern building all the way down to Iams Nature Center that parallels the business, runs behind all the businesses on Sevier Avenue. And if you've been to South Knoxville anytime, you've seen the incredible growth of businesses in that area, again, related to the urban wilderness and offering a lot. I say this will be an art walk and a pub crawl most of the time because there were probably 6 breweries along the way. But again, working with the local Gulf and Ohio Railway to create this beautiful art trail and just another form of transportation for everybody to be able to get out and recreate differently. The head of the Tennessee Rivers Initiative we're very proud of, and that's really creating access to the Holston and the French Broad River. 2 incredible rivers, and as many of you know, the Tennessee River starts in Knoxville. Again, we don't claim that, but we should. Holston and French Broad come together just up from downtown, but it's important for people to have access, and we don't have a lot of public access to those rivers. And again, we think it's important that all of us are able to get out and enjoy. 5 to 7 miles is an ideal interval. So we were up this morning at Seven Islands State Birding Park. We purchased property just below that, about 5 miles, Cruise Landing, that will become a county park, and we'll continue to look at those access points on both the Holston and the French Broad. And as a part of that is making sure that all of those are accessible to all and adaptive. So not only are we making accessible docks on the rivers, but we've made the first adaptive trail really in I think it was all of East Tennessee, where Carly Pearson right there, she really opened up our eyes to know that you don't have to change your design much. We all can do that, to think inclusively and adaptively, and it was just a slight adjustment of design, but to be able to really let everyone get out and play. So the first adaptive trails are done at Sharps Ridge. Now you'll find them at Concord Park. You're going to find them in South Knoxville. But again, we like that opportunity to incubate an idea and hope others pick it up and carry it. Also, up in the Powell area, incredible opportunity. We have Beaver Creek runs the entire length of Knox County. And what's important, what we've discovered, important to our work, and we discovered by doing one park, is close to home opportunities are important to you. 70 acres near your home is just as important as 7,000 acres in a national park 2 hours away. And so creating those close to home opportunities where you can get on a creek and paddle when you're on your way home from work, or take a walk, or go for a bike ride, you're more likely to do that if all these opportunities are close to home. And so that's where we tend to work on small parcels of land and work within the county and within the city to make those everything accessible and close to you to be able to use it. And my favorite quote, I think we in East Tennessee have a little bit of heaven. So heaven is below our feet as well as above our head. And I think we all live here because it is a beautiful and amazing place to live. And we're glad to be able to do our little bit of part to keep it and make it available to everyone. So I think I have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
Obviously, I talk fast.
Question.
I had a comment on urban wilderness. We had a family reunion last weekend, and we had some people coming in from Georgia and Alabama, and we typically have about a 4-hour free time on Saturday where everybody just goes and does what they want to do. So 4 of the family members that are in their mid-20s, they take off, and I don't even know where they went. They come back and they said they had a wonderful time in urban wilderness, and they rented bikes and went down the trail and all this. And now I'm fired up. I don't even know how to get there. They've been here less than 24 hours and they'd already been over there.
I'm fortunate. We have a visitor center downstairs, and I get to hear that all day. So it's so great to hear what other people say about our city. And we have so many people come through that said, I've been here before, but we're thinking of moving here. We're thinking of moving here because of everything there is to do. So yeah, we do. Just take the James White Parkway to the end. So that's all you have to do. That'll get you there.
Carol, I noticed that Atlanta, there's a big to do right now about a big forested area there that developers have they've decided now they're going to let some development go on there. how well protected are these lands that you guys have taken on? And urban forestry is so important. Is there a chance that they would be lost to development someday?
And, the lands that we do, that we do work with, either they're deed restricted or they have a conservation easement on them. So we're, not that we don't trust government, but we don't trust government, so we make sure before we hand it off, it's deed restricted, and then even the piece that's over there that hasn't been developed in the river bluff, we get, approval rights to what happens to it. So we try to be really careful that, and especially if land was given to us, we need to assure the intent was there. So generally, it's given to us with the intent of a park or open space or parkland, and we need to make sure that that happens, and we're true to our word. So yes, and I think what you're saying in Atlanta, I went to this wonderful town center development there, and integrating playground and integrating the forest is the same idea. And I think if we can ever get some pioneering developers to shift a little bit and begin integrating those amenities, they will do well, because that's really what people want. They want trails, they want greenways, they want play spaces where they live.
They want shade.
Yeah, they want shade.
I keep thinking about your statistic that healthier children live within half a mile of the playground. Is that statistic any part of your planning and vision?
Yes, and there's also a metric of a 1 mile. Another goal that nationally through organizations like ours is 1 mile walk, a 10-minute walk to a park. So those, yeah, they do drive us, and we really look at where we can place those. We have the small parcel parks. So we did a 12-acre park, we're doing a 14-acre park, but all of those tend to be embedded in communities. And then we look at what the city and the county are doing, because they're really in the park business. So we try to complement or add in, fill in where there is the need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol, you want to announce your website, or can I?
Oh, yeah, you can, legacyparks.org or Outdoor Knoxville.
Did y'all hear that? Legacyparks.org or Outdoor Knoxville.
.com.
So, .com.
Yeah.